What happens when heavy metal meets folk music? You get fiddle solos, flutes, bagpipes, and even the hurdy-gurdy. You get epic tales and a whole lot of fun. When we started Lock Horns, one of the first new genres we added to our metal family tree was folk metal. Today, we dive deeper into the albums that have made this genre so popular. This week on Lock Horns, it's a debate on the essential albums of folk metal.
Skål! And welcome back to Lock Horns, BangerTV's weekly live metal debate show. I'm Daniel Dekay, filling in for Sam Dunn, who has left me the keys for the spacious Banger Bar here at HQ. If you are watching us in the archive, please join us live. It's a lot more fun when you do. Share it, tweet it, put it out on social media. Let's get everyone involved in the Banger family here. Today we are talking essential folk metal albums, and joining me is one of our favorite and returning guests, Mr. Dylan Gowan. Dude, hey. What's up?
How you doing?
Not too bad, man. How are you?
Doing very well. Finally, actually, it's a meet in person.
It's a real. The internet's cool, but I like to meet you in person here.
Exactly, yeah.
What's going on with Vesperia, and what's going on with you, dude?
Great, man. I've just been keeping busy. We just entered our post-production phase for our upcoming sophomore record, Iron Saga, which is due to release next year. And what's also awesome with what's going on as well with us is we're just finishing up a small run with Unbowed and Becomes Astral. So looking forward to doing a couple of last little shows with them in Ottawa, Quebec City, and Montreal. So that's what I've been up to lately.
Right on. Well, we're talking folk metal today. Why don't you tell me a little bit about why you're standing here talking folk?
Well, I mean, I just love the I love the genre of folk metal, and plus Vesperia, before becoming Vesperia, they were called a band called Bolero, which was a folk metal band. Right. And over the time, it kind of changed its sound quite a bit. And then, just started getting into the genre at the same time I started getting into prog metal. And what's great about this genre is that it takes conventional songwriting, kind of flips it on its head, and adds more of a folk instrumentation for it, like adding, flutes and hurdy-gurdies and fiddles into metal, and then it just creates this kind of really fun atmosphere that I really like to see in a lot of metal shows that I go to.
Awesome. Well, I'm stoked to be here. I'm stoked that you're here, and I'm stoked to get down to it. Joining us in this, as I mentioned, live chat, we've got people from all over the world, including Texas, New York, Seattle, Chicago, Finland, Romania, Australia, Belgium, Poland, Colombia, Germany, Jordan, Brazil, Lithuania, Japan, and of course our friends from all across Canada where we broadcast from: Windsor, Hamilton, Toronto, Guelph, Calgary, Ottawa, Montreal, and some good friends of mine down in Parkdale. And of course, joining us in the Banger Hangar today, the one and only Lisa Ladiseur.
Thanks. Nice to see you, Daniel Dekay.
Always a pleasure, Lisa. I see you've got a wide array of albums going on behind you. I'm kind of seeing a theme of horns.
Yeah, you're new here, but I change that every week. So good guess. It's horns today.
Horns. And any reason for that? Leaving it at that.
Horns and cowbells.
Understood. So today, of course, we are talking folk metal essential albums. We are not talking bands. I want to hear about records. I want well-articulated arguments and opinions as to why these are the essential records for the genre-defining. Let's get some stuff up on this board. Of course, a good place to start would be to look at the folk metal branch on the heavy metal family tree, as I'm sure we will see some albums from those bands making an appearance today. So there it is. That is where we left off on the folk metal episode of Lock Horns. Looking at this tree, Dylan, is there obviously a lot of heavyweights on there, some stuff at the bottom?
There's actually, it's funny, there's actually some bands that I would love to include, and hopefully there'll be enough people in the chat that we can throw on some of their albums. I know there's one Eastern European band I would love to see on here, but so let's see in the chat, see if there's enough people supporting them to get their album on.
It's a fairly small branch, but a tight scene, so let's get down to it. We like to start with definition of the genre. Is folk metal simply heavy metal meets folk, or is it something deeper than that?
It's a little deeper than that, though, but the overall consensus is that it's folk music mixed in with metal. But when in terms of like folk instrumentation, you're adding elements that are not in the traditional like metal sense, like guitars, drums. You're adding in like fiddles and hurdy-gurdies and tin whistles and all these like folk instruments into metal, and then you're creating this kind of blend of the two genres, whether it be on the extreme side or on the more thrashier side of it, or even just keeping it more of a simpler thing, or even like in a like almost like a paganist kind of way. And you know, it's just like that kind of blend of those styles that really makes people really drawn to this genre for sure.
While specifically not my forte into the heavy metal world, I certainly have some opinions on the genre. I know you're loaded with them, and I know you, the guests, are full of stuff to say. But before we can get to that, the first thing we like to do at Lockhorns is pick the undisputable legend record, and we at Banger came up with the legend record, Skyclad, The Wayward Sons of Mother Earth, their '91 debut record. And I'm going to toss it over to Lisa. Tell me a little bit about how the legend works.
Yeah, for those of you who don't host the show every week and those of you who are new watching, the legend is kind of like an immunity idol on Lockhorns. It can't be voted off the chart. We've chosen it to be the most essential record, not up to debate, but we still want to hear your comments about it. So tell us what you think about this record. And those of you who don't know Skyclad, here's a clip.
Wednesday's child, in each other found a friend, and searched together for the treasure, hiding at the rainbow's end. To white the sun Wednesday's child, all is white, the kids are black. The dances in by us to deadlock. One step forward, two steps back. They're coming, sticks and ladders. All your sins will find you out. All your games lost to me, coming in the roundabout. The roadside meadow flower planted where we would do and casted seed on the lawn, pouring following up with the truth. We march to drums of our own choosing, each of them in different time. You are free to live your own life, so I am free to live mine. Ich kann euch nicht hören.
I'm still trying to figure out if that's a show or a party. It definitely looks like a spot where I want to be.
That's the thing that's so great about this genre, is that it gives you such a fun-loving atmosphere. It's not like it's typically in a mosh pit, you know how it's like you're getting your aggression out kind of a thing. But with these ones, it's more like, hey, it's like wrapping your arm around the guy and just kind of like almost like Oktoberfest meets metal in a way. But you know, it's a fun atmosphere, and Skyclad definitely have that in their show. And you know, especially with them kind of helping to create the genre, definitely help bring out the atmosphere as well within this style of music.
Awesome. Sure. Well, let's get it up on the board, and let's go to the board and see what our bangers have to say about it. Terry Mapp, Skyclad practically invented the term folk metal. Even if the first two albums they put out are more thrash-based, they've defined the genre, and hundreds of bands have taken their lead and run with it. Stefan, The Wayward Sons of Mother Earth of Skyclad. It is the start of folk metal, in my opinion. Seems that we got everyone on the same page here. Alexander Van de Kavai. Skyclad is probably the first folk metal band, but with a big focus on the folk in folk metal, in my opinion. So maybe not the most essential folk metal. That one guy. I was going to say that The Wayward Sons of Mother Earth is like proto-folk metal, or at least the first folk metal album. Dr. Gebemel. Basically, every one of the first 6 Skyclad records is an essential. Rain Without End, I think they should only pick one Skyclad album. Prince of Poverty Line has my vote. There's the first one that we're seeing perhaps not on the same page as us. Korgol, welcome back. Listening to The Sky Beneath My Feet right now, Skyclad's best ever song, but not much folk here. They didn't fully embrace folk until album number 2. Then they perfected it on Prince of the Poverty Line. So perhaps a lot of support for that record. Whoremaster, another regular. To me, the legend is Skyclad, Wayward Sons of Mother Earth. There is no question in my mind. This is the holy grail and foundation of folk metal. So it seems like there's a lot of support on the board for that legend. I'm not really seeing anyone in big disagreements, perhaps a different Skyclad record, but...
Yeah, but Skyclad definitely belong regardless of the either one of those two, either the Poverty Line or Wayward Sons of Mother Earth. I mean, but essentially, there's more of a consensus that this is definitely the one that kind of kickstarted the subgenre for sure.
Well, this was our pick at Banger, and for those of you that don't know, on Lock Horns, we like to always give the guest a choice spot. So Dylan, what is your guest choice record for the folk metal essential albums?
Well, the one, actually it was just my essential one was kind of an easy choice because it was the one that actually got me into this genre, which is Eluveitie Selenia. I mean, that one is just an absolute, if you're talking about the perfect folk metal record, in my opinion, it's definitely Eluveitie Selenia. Just excellent grooves, excellent hooks, great blend of both folk music and metal. And just the growling and the singing, and just it brings out so much emotion in this record that this is one of the, if someone was asking me what would be one to start off with, I would instantly send them to this record.
Well, let's get that choice up on the board for you, and I'm sure we're going to see a lot of support as it is an incredibly popular album in the genre. So let's check out what everyone is saying about it.
I'm going to ding you already, Daniel.
Ding me!
What? I'm going to buzz you, because before we go to the comments, we want to give people a chance to really think about it and get their thoughts in on this record as we go to a clip.
So one of my favorite parts about Lock Horns is what you guys don't see, what goes on during the videos while they're playing. Dylan Gowan here, air drumming and singing all the words to that last video.
Innis Mona is my favorite song by Eluveitie, and when we were lucky enough to open for them a couple of years ago, and I was just jaw-dropped by their show, and just I couldn't believe that whole scenario, how that whole day played out, because we found out literally hours before that we were filling in to open up that show, and I just, it's such a good record. Honestly, if you have not listened to Selenia, you absolutely have to. It's a must. Absolute must. Well, so do it.
Let's nerd out and get some thoughts on Selenia. Alexander, if you're new to folk metal and you have to know what it's about with just one album, I would recommend Selenia. I wouldn't say Selenia is their best album, but it is certainly the album with the best balance between folk and metal. Corpus Colossum, Selenia has a great mix of folk and metal, helping non-metal people enjoy metal. That One Guy weighs in. Selenia encompasses folk metal in all its glory. Short and sweet. I like it. Wish You Had My Name. I do. Eluveitie's Helvetios album is the best folk metal, as well as some of the best music on earth. Anyone who disagrees is, of course, objectively wrong. Some strong words for a different record there. Rain Without End. Helvetios is a good album, but Selenia had a bigger impact if we're talking essential records. Gadget. Yeah, it's a good album, but I liked Helvetios better. Ruska, sorry, Selenia has better production, but my heart beats for Spirit. Ding.
Yeah, we're going to take this opportunity to apologize, a blanket apology from everyone on the show to all of you for getting your names wrong, for getting band names wrong, album names wrong. This is a tricky one. We're nice in Canada, we're trying, but if we get things wrong, please be kind. And so right now it's clear lots of support for Slania, but also some other records. I'm going to throw this out to the chat right now. If you want another record by this band, just write the title of the record in the live chat, and we'll have a look at how people feel about this if we need to put a second record up there. And in the meantime, we're going to go back and we're going to talk about a legend album that some people wish had have been, which is Bathory.
Yeah, I saw this brewing in the chat. Let's go back to this. Thrash Maniac 99. My vote is for Bathory's Hammerheart for the legend. It made a significant impact on the genre and helped influence future folk metal bands. Tracks such as Home of Once Brave and One Road to Asa Bay are classics. Marstopia. Bathory definitely had a big influence, I would say, but I cannot really name an album since the beginning is more thrash, black, and death. The Nordland Parts, maybe. Princess Scarlet Guys. Hammerheart is not the legend. There's a difference between folk and Viking metal. Folk metal has a more fun atmosphere, while Viking is slower and a black metal-esque atmosphere. Marstopia, I am telling you, Bathory definitely had a big influence, even though their roots are different and they encapsulate different elements. Now, of course, Hammerheart, a big departure from Bathory's original black metal sound.
Yeah.
5 records in, starting to explore the Nordic themes and the Viking metal. What's your take not only on the record, but the inclusion or perhaps the separation of folk metal and Viking metal?
Well, it's a bit of a tricky situation though, with like bands like Bathory and Amorphous and even Winterstein. It's a little bit of like, there's a little bit of a gray area because they've stepped into, like, they kind of dipped their toes into that kind of folk style. But of course, there's always a debate amongst the group, like whether it was folk metal or was it more of a pagan or Viking, or, you know, everyone kind of has their own separate camps. Bathory, just in my opinion, I think it's more of a black metal kind of a vibe to it, just from what I'm understanding. Like, obviously people in the chat will probably feel very different from what I feel, but you know, we're Canadian, we'll be diplomatic, and we'll see how it all plays out.
Yeah, definitely not trying to pitch Bathory as a folk metal band here, but there's definitely, and I'm seeing a lot of support in the chat, to see this record up on the board as an influential and essential album in the folk metal genre. So we're going to stick Hammerheart up here for now and see how that plays out. Also in the chat, I'm seeing a lot of these bands are coming from Finland.
Yeah.
Can you speak to me about, is folk metal strictly a territorial type thing, or is this more of an international thing? And what's going on in Finland with folk?
Well, I mean, folk metal is kind of an international style because every country kind of has their own spin on it, but it just seems that Finland has kind of a stranglehold on the whole subgenre because of just the way that it's, like, just the way that they have, just as people, and just as the way that the landscapes, as well as traditional folk music, and just kind of like, you know, every Finnish person that I've met has actually been like such a warm, welcoming person that, you know, it kind of falls into that genre even when they play metal and folk music, and it just feels like, you know, bands like Moon Sorrow and Korpiklaani, like they just bring out that kind of their personalities into the style, and that's what kind of really attaches them. Just from what my observation of it, anyways, is. Like
Yeah, and I'm seeing a lot of Fintroll and Amorphous and Turisas on the chat.
And Sephirum.
And Sephirum, it's all from Finland.
Yeah.
Let's go to the board and see. Lisa?
Yeah, we're going to go to the board in 1 second after I do copy and paste.
It's incredible.
It's so high tech here on the show.
The operation that Lisa Ladisser is running behind that laptop screen is incredible. She is the unsung hero here at Lockhorns and BangerTV, let me tell you, witnessing this eye first.
So it looks like the Finnish band that's getting the most traction is Sephirum.
Oh yeah, for sure. You cannot have a folk metal essential albums without the inclusion of Sephirum. That's like excluding Slayer from the Big Four, kind of a thing.
Cardinal sin.
Cardinal sin, exactly.
Well, let's go to the board and check out what, let's see what everyone has to say about Sephirum, a band that I'm more familiar with on the board here. So let's nerd out a bit. Yeku, when Sephirim's Victory Songs was released, the amount of listeners it gathered here in Finland was insane. It unified thrashers, general metal listeners, new bloods, power metalers, black metal nerds, and all of the like under one banner to just enjoy fun metal tunes, and drink lots of beer, as if we didn't do enough of that on our own. I can attest to that. Mersunin. Ensiferum's self-titled debut should be on the list. It is somewhat of a modern classic and a perfect example of melodeath-ish folk metal. I'm not even going to try and read that name, but Ensiferum's first, I wish we could throw that up on the screen.
It's got a bunch of ruins in it.
Tons of runes in it. Ensiferum's first album, the self-titled Ensiferum, in fact has many folk elements mixed with melodeath. Great screams, amazing guitar work, but strange folky breaks between harsh parts. Totally essential. Seeing a lot of support here for Ensiferum. No doubt that should come as no surprise.
Yeah, I think like even with Ensiferum, I guess the one that I posted on my Facebook page to a bunch of Vesperia fans and a bunch of fans of the genre as well. Asked them what would be like if you could only pick one Ensiferum record, what would it be? And pretty much 95% of everybody said victory songs.
No kidding.
Because think about it, when you have just like, whoops, sorry, that's my bad. But still, but like even I'm human, I make mistakes. But even though this was Yari's Yari's last record before he joined.
Before he goes to form
Wintersun.
Wintersun, of course.
And absolutely, victory songs for sure, hands down.
Nothing against the Petri era of the band, but it's Yari for me all the way, and it should come as no surprise that I'm holding the magnet for victory songs right here. I'm going to put it up, and I'm sure we've got a lot of people weighing in on that record specifically. I'm sure no, maybe not. Victory, no.
Yeah, didn't we just read those?
Yeah, sure. Everyone loves it. It's a kick-ass record.
There's so many Finnish bands that people are kind of going a little bananas here. Bananas, a little crazy in the chat about the Finnish bands. We want them. We want albums, don't forget.
So while we're in Finland, obviously we can't go much further without the name Amorphous coming up.
Yeah.
Joep Dominicus, Tales from the Thousand Lakes as Legend. It was folk metal and more before this genre even existed. Mika, Amorphous is folk because they have so much Finnish folklore in the lyrics. And that, to me, is the definition of folk metal. Sure, you can have more folky sound and whatnot, but to me, it's the themes. So I'm seeing, obviously, it should come as no surprise, a lot of support here for Amorphous. Tales from a Thousand Lakes, obviously.
Yeah.
Pinnacle record, 1994, very early in the folk metal movement. Do you have any personal thoughts on that record?
I mean, I've always considered Amorphous to be more of a melodeath band, but having a couple of folky elements to it. But then again, it's like one of those kind of things where it's just like, it's one of those chat questions where it's just like, okay, maybe we should just see like whether or not like they either want to include, if enough people in the chat want Tales of a Thousand Lakes in it, then they could do it. Because me personally, I kind of see Amorphous as more of a melodeath band versus being a folk band. But Amorphous, definitely an essential band to help even with some of these bands that we're mentioning right now. Definitely have helped influence each other, just being in Finland and just being kind of incorporated with the metal scene over there for sure.
Interesting. I think that it wouldn't be Lockhorns unless we had some...
By the way, quick disclaimer.
Oh, go.
I'm just remembering right now. Victory Songs was, I think, Petrie's release instead of Yari was on Iron. That was Yari was only on the first couple of records, and then I think this is the debut of Petrie, I think.
I'm surprised that hasn't come up viciously in the chat yet.
Dude, I got destroyed for forgetting to mention Fate's Warning in Prague.
He's mentioned it 3 times today.
I know. Fate's Warning fans, I apologize. I'm using this opportunity now.
Well, while we're putting stuff up on the board, let's keep moving through this monstrous Finnish scene. Lisa.
Well, you haven't put it up on the board because just like you forgot Fate's Warning, we forgot our Amorphous magnet, so you're going to have to write it on.
No problem at all. So we're going for Thousand Lakes, I think, if you guys don't agree, this is your chance to speak up. I'm going to write it really, really slowly so Lisa has time to copy and paste the comments for me. So I'm going to start here. Since we don't have the magnet because we're all human here, Amorphous. Just go 1,000. I think we all know what that means. Bam. It's up there. But continuing to move through Finland, who obviously had the hugest output of folk metal, as we're seeing. I believe it's time we talk about another one of my favorites, Korpiklaani. Rupert Ebery, Korpiklaani, Spirit of the Forest. I stopped playing violin for several years when I was in high school until I heard this album, which resulted in me getting way more into music than I ever had been before. Hugely important album for me as a person, at the very least. I always love a good personal story.
Okay, Korpiklaani from Spirit of the Forest. Okay, they had for Wooden Pints, literally one of the best music videos I've ever seen. When you the intro to it is basically some guy on a violin just kicking the door from an outhouse and just starts shredding on violin. And I mean,
Doesn't
how
get
can
much
you not?
cooler.
How can that not put a smile on your face, man? Korpiklaani is just a fun band to listen to. If you're depressed at a Korpiklaani show, how can you be? Like, it's just such a fun-loving band. I mean, like, and they have to be here, man, for sure.
I'm sure we've got lots more on Korpiklaani on the board here. Blake B, for Korpiklaani, I say Tales Along This Road. It's got the mix of drinking songs, battle songs, paganish songs. Get it up there. Well, we might just do that. Yeah, and just, of course, locking horns here. Fab Cammy, take down Bathory, please. Let's move to Korpiklaani. We'll talk about Bathory later more. We're on Korpiklaani right now. Jose Vasquez, if you have to put Korpiklaani, Corvin Cunningus album. More on Korpiklaani. Hearing about a bunch of different records here. And
I love that.
Korpiklaani are
It's
just drunk, says Hannah Kay.
Well, a lot of
Vodka.
well, a lot of their songs are like involving like drinking and kind of like drinking debauchery, that kind of thing. But that's also with the genre as well, is like you can jump so many different ways to it. Like you can have songs about drinking, you can have songs about mythology, history. You know, it just jumps from like paganism. You can jump a variety of different topics, right? But this is the genre as well that just kind of allows you to kind of have that fun-loving atmosphere. Like, not a lot of guys are just going to sit around with their arms crossed and being like, "This band sucks." Like, they want to be like, "Hey, man, you're at the same show I am. Like, you like the same band. Cool, let's go have a pint." And like,
If you've ever been to a pagan fest, which I know you have,
Yeah.
you can definitely attest to that kind of atmosphere.
yeah, and that was a big thing, especially for North America. How like a bunch of you know, Canadian and American kids started learning about this genre was through Pagan Fest and seeing how all these different bands from, you know, Scandinavia and Russia and just all coming together onto one tour and just showing what like this genre is to a new bunch of kids. And that's how all of us got hooked. That's how we got started. That's how a bunch of other bands got started in Toronto and elsewhere. So yeah. It's just a fun genre to listen to, man.
All right, so we have one magnet for this band. You can put it upside down if you want to indicate their drunkenness, if you like.
Sideways,
and we'll
it's
see
over
if
here.
it makes it when we get to the end.
So we do have the Voice of Wilderness.
Voice of Wilderness, though, that was kind of our consensus of it at first. But if there's more people that want Spirit of the Forest instead, we'll add that instead.
All about locking horns, and it's all about including your opinions in the guest chat. So keep that coming as we build this essential folk metal albums list. Lisa, are there any more albums that are coming up in the chat that we just got to get up there?
Tons, which is why I'm going to take a break to count those comments. And instead, we're going to move on to another part of the world. We actually have a guest caller coming up shortly as we tackle Celtic metal instead of just metal from Finland. So let's talk about that a little bit. Let's get your suggestions for those important albums.
Okay, what can you tell me about Celtic metal versus folk metal? Is there a distinguishing line? I'm a little confused myself. Can you clarify this?
Well, my consensus of what Celtic metal is more or less like an Irish kind of spin on folk metal, where it's mainly influencing by just basically having like Celtic music. Like you have bands like, of course, like Korpiklaani and Primordial, but to me, I think they're just under the branch of folk metal because Celtic music is just just folk music from Ireland. So. But Korpiklaani and Primordial for sure should be on the board for like just for being part of this umbrella, right? So, you know, that's kind of the consensus of it. I mean, I think Celtic metal just follows. Just to kind of recap, Celtic metal I think just kind of falls under folk metal, but if enough, like I said, enough people wanted to include it in terms of its own branch, then there could be a case for it. But we'll see. But the main two that I know about is Primordial and Korpiklaani.
Now, it's funny that you mentioned Cruachan because I think that our guest caller is Keith from Cruachan. Let's see. Keith! Keith, are you there?
Hey, how's things?
Dude, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm not too bad. Watching the show over here in Dublin.
Dude, that's so cool, man. See, we truly are international, streaming all over the world.
Awesome.
So, I mean, we're getting down to the nitty-gritty about folk metal. I would love to have you weigh in on what the genre really means to you, and if you can kind of define it for me.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I started Cruachan back in 1992, 93. There's a big debate about who was the first folk metal band. Was it Cruachan or was it Skyclad? But there's no question Skyclad released The Wayward Sons of Mother Earth before we had an album out, so can't argue with that. Definitely wouldn't say it's an important folk metal album. As far as I'm concerned, it's thrash metal. The one that came after, Burnt Offering for the Bone Idol, to me that's the definitive Skyclad album. But when I started getting Cruachan together, I was just looking at folk music around me. In Ireland, folk music never died out like all these, Scandinavian countries and European countries. They had folk music revivals. We never had that in Ireland because folk music never died. It's always been around us. So I just decided it'd be really great to incorporate it into metal. And one thing that nobody seems to pick up on is you look at a lot of the early heavy metal bands, like pick any early Iron Maiden album, pick some of the rhythms, din din diddle, din din diddle, stick a violin on that and you're hearing folk music right there. So that's where it came from. I was 14, 15 years of age when I wrote the music for our first album, Two in the Gale. And I always say in interviews, it takes the mind of someone that age to think this is going to work. But hey, it has worked. We're here 25 years later when we have a new album coming out in February next year.
When you were, as you say, 14 or 15 years old, putting together some of those earliest tunes, what were your biggest influences from the world of metal and the world of folk? Where was that mix coming from?
Well, folk music, it came from the stuff that was around me. There was a very famous Irish band called Horselips who did exactly what these modern folk metal bands are doing, except the heaviest thing they had was heavy rock, the kind of Tin Lizzy stuff. So Horselips was a very big influence. But apart from that, I was into all the big metal bands from Slayer, Metallica. I started getting into black metal around the time of the big black metal explosion in 1993. So you can definitely hear on the first Cruachan album, Two in the Gale, that's folk metal from start to finish, and it's got full black metal all the way through it, when black metal was this strange thing. The reason I screamed the vocals I did, not because I was influenced by Norwegian black metal, because that didn't really exist. I was influenced by Millie from Creator, Mick Harris from Napalm Death, these kind of people. So yeah, that's where it came from for me.
Now, and of course, since we are doing essential folk metal albums, I gotta ask you, what is your pick for the Essential Folk Metal Albums board?
Well, as I said, I'd definitely take that Skyclad album down because it's not a folk metal album. There's one folk metal song on it, the Withershins Jig. The rest is entirely thrash metal. You made a point there about Amorphous having a few folk metal bits here and there, so it doesn't qualify. So you're kind of mixing up what you're saying, but I'd immediately replace it with Burnt Offering for the Bone Idol, because for me, that's the definitive Skyclad album, and that's when they really got going. And for me, that's where folk metal started, along with Cruachan's first album. Those two albums are the main ones. You definitely have to have Eluveitie. It's funny, it just shows you how Cruachan's career has been. We were supported by Eluveitie in 2005. 10 years later, we're supporting them on tour. So they're phenomenal, where they've gone to just from strength to strength. I remember Chris from Eluveitie sending me an email back in the early days saying, "Hi, Keith, I've just started my own little folk metal band." And I remember laughing at this poor kid. And then we played with them in Switzerland. I remember going, shit, they're really good. And 10 years later, they've just exploded. So definitely you need to have an Eluveitie album up there.
Excellent. Well, looking at the guest chat, I know that you are not alone in those thoughts. Keith, thank you so much for calling in. I'm actually holding Cruachan record right now, and if you're watching us on the live stream, you're going to see what happens next.
Cheers, guys. An absolute pleasure. Thanks very much for having me.
Cheers. Thanks, Keith.
All right, let's throw them up.
Bye-bye.
Well, so we have Cruachan now, just on the board actually, but
It's pretty funny that his first initial reaction was to take down Skyclad. Not to take them off the board, but to switch
I'm gonna
the
do
album.
what it says.
Well, maybe we need to write in that other album on there.
That's
as
true, yeah,
possible.
There's definitely there was some fucking support, and I'm saying fucking because it's all I see on the board right now. So let's go to the board and read about Cruachan. Kill Squid Engage. Cruachan are fucking awesome. John Tilley, Keith Fay, legend. That was him on the phone. Hallowed Ground 777. Cruachan are one of the founders of the genres of folk metal. Essential album equals The Middle Kingdom from 2000. So definitely a lot of love for Cruachan on the board. Perhaps not the magnet that we had printed out in advance, but that's what the marker's for, and we can get it. While we're in the world of Celtic, the name Primordial has come up numerous times.
Yeah.
I think it's time that we address that and perhaps get something by them on the board. Let's see what the consensus is. Vessel, Primordial to the Nameless Dead. We need it, if only because it turned 10 yesterday. Well, happy birthday. Andrew, Primordial to the Nameless Dead is a masterpiece in all aspects, from the excellent atmospheric and epic mastery of music. Chris, Primordial to the Nameless Dead, seeing a lot of support. The best folk metal album ever, period. Andrew, again, Primordial to the Nameless Dead. Perfect blend of black, doom, and folk. You keep coming back. I got you, man. We know you love it. Vessel, again, we need Primordial as a serious band among all the frivolous stuff on the board. Well, I know we definitely have a magnet ready for Primordial.
And it's a good thing because it seems like this is one of the locks on Lockhorns today.
100% the lock on Lockhorns today.
Or as Daniel Dekay likes to say, Hundo P, which is his thing.
Hundo P, we're throwing Primordial up on the board to the Nameless Dead.
Yeah, it's a must, man. I mean, like, well, you can't have a chart without Primordial. I mean, and plus, you know, a certain guest on this show as well, with Natalie Zed being a big fan as well. I mean, we have to just even throw it on just for even that alone, right? So, yeah, Primordial, absolute must for sure.
Although don't forget, it is called Lockhorns, so not everything.
So let's lock some horns. Thies, as much as I love Primordial, I don't think they quite fit in here. Sure, they have some folk elements, but the black metal / epic doom metal is more important. If we counted every band with folk elements, we would need to add stuff like Bathory and Windir as well. It's definitely locking some horns, but I'm still seeing a ton of support.
But I think that comment was kind of like what I was saying previously about Amorphous, though, is that, like, yeah, they did kind of have folk elements, but they weren't necessarily a full-on folk band, right? I think I was kind of twisting my words a little bit when I was trying to describe how I see Amorphous as more of like a mellow death band than a folk band. But then again, it's like I said before, that's why the chat's open.
And while we're dealing in Celtic metal, this was a band that I'd actually never heard of before I started doing some of my digging for the episode. Let's go to the board and talk a little bit about Mago de Oz. Yes, at Ortega, Mago de Oz has been a band with a very interesting musical background. They started as a hard rock band with Celtic touches, and they always included music instruments like flutes and violins. Jag 214, if you do not put an album from Mago de Oz, then y'all are missing out. They've been doing folk metal for a very long time. Count Scotula 87, I agree, Mago de Oz needs to be on this list. I would put in a vote of their album Gaia. Every time I've seen them live, when they play these songs, the crowd goes absolutely nuts. It's a pretty interesting musical blend going on with that band. What can you tell me about it?
Well, to be honest though, I was kind of I was really late to this band. To me, they kind of had more of like a power metal-ish kind of a vibe to them, and then eventually later on, they kind of incorporated the folk metal elements into it. Kind of later on in the records, just from my opinion, anyways. But to be honest, I'm not like I know of them. I know a couple of their songs, but I couldn't really pinpoint which album necessarily is the essential one. Like, so it's kind of a band that I'm kind of not quite familiar with. I apologize. I know that they've come up quite a bit, but let's see if there's enough of a consensus with them to see if we should throw an album up there.
Right, and you know, we'll let the chat, if you guys want to throw out ideas for an album by Mago de Oz, there's plenty other bands for us to chat on. I am seeing Finnish come up a lot in the chat. Finnish.
I know. We're trying something new this week. We're trying something new this week because what happens is we have a delay from the studio to live stream. So sometimes we've moved on from a topic and you guys are just like getting into it. So we're trying in the chat to just be like, tell us the album of this band, guys. Just tell us. And we're still having a delay. So sorry about that. But
okay.
it looks like Finnish, which we don't have a backup for.
While you were chatting, I just watched on the live chat, it just like 15 people, Finnish. 15 more people, Finnish.
Someone sent a Wikipedia link to it.
So I guess you got to write that one in.
Yeah, we're going to go with Finnish from Mego to Oz. Let's get this down here. Look at this tree growing.
There's definitely a lot of bands that I see on the chat right now, which I would love to include. But we're gonna just jump into another section before we jump back into it, I guess. Eh?
Yeah, we're gonna expand to the rest of the world, and to get us there, a few clips from some other folk metal bands, not in Finland, and some of them not even in Europe.
Always cool to watch a compilation video put together by the team here at Banger. That was rad. A view of folk metal from all over the world, a global overlook, and some Canada in there, protocols represented. But in the break, I was watching the live chat and I see a lot of people want to talk about Ulver. Now, what can you tell me about Ulver quickly?
I mean, Ulver, they kind of they seem more of like a black metal band to me than more of a folk band. They kind of do like a similar thing, almost with like Agalok or Agalash. I always mispronounce that band's name like crazy. It's kind of like they're in the same kind of realm as that, where it's like black metal meets a little bit of folk elements into it. So yeah, I mean, to me, they kind of have their own like separate thing going versus the rest of the bands that we've mentioned, but yeah, I just say like they kind of are in their own vein, like Agalok. Even though I completely butcher that band's name over and over again, no matter how many times I try to pronounce it.
You got it. Good, man. So let's go to the board on Ulver. Blake B. Ulver, 100% on Beartat. One of the first to blend black metal and folk music. Songs about folklore and epic poems. Harbinger of Taxes. Bergtat would be the most appropriate Ulver album by far. Vessel, Ulver, Bergtat as a folk-infused black metal essential. Runugu, nope, Ulver are not folk metal, pure folk, not metal, then black, then electro. So I see some locking of horns there, but as I keep watching the live chat, I'm still seeing a lot of people throw out Bergtat as the definitive record from Ulver.
Yeah, but Ulver kind of like does like, but Ulver has also some folk albums too. It's just even outside of just being in part of the black metal scene as well. So Ulver to me is like the same vein as Amorphous. They're kind of a tricky one for me, but I guess we'll see how the chat goes for sure.
Well, based on what I'm seeing up there, I'm throwing Bergtat up on the board. There it is. My handwriting got progressively worse over the episode. Jeez, look at that. Ulver up on the board. And of course, I'm sure I'm going to get yelled at for it, but we'll get to that in a sec. One of the big bands in that video, Orphanland, of course, from Israel. It was hilarious to see the footage of them, an Israeli band, playing at St. Vitus in Brooklyn in that video.
Also hilarious to see DK dancing around during the video chat.
You're not supposed to tell him that, Lisa.
You ratted on Dylan.
Okay, fine. I guess they're even
So
playing field now.
1-1. It's fine.
No one else in here is allowed to tell about anything that goes on during the breaks. I digress. To the board. Hannah Klein, I think the board should also include something outside Europe, like Israel's Orphanland. The band perfectly blends Middle Eastern folklore and death doom progressive metal to spread their message of peace despite religious differences. The perfect example of this is their third record, Mabul. Quarthorn Venom. Orphanland, they are probably one of the best and most important Oriental bands in the folk scene, blending all things Middle Eastern with metal. Harbinger of Taxes. Orphanland's Mabul is the perfect combination of prog mellow death and Middle Eastern folk. It's gorgeous in a way very few albums are. Obviously, Mabul is, I believe, by anyone's standards, Orphanland's masterpiece record.
It's definitely the album for sure that to like really get into people into this band. Orphanland is
Absolutely.
It's definitely the one for sure. And it's always a cool thing with like I was saying earlier in the episode where. Like every country kind of has their own spin on it. Orphanland is the perfect example of like how they're doing their own spin on it, kind of bringing in Middle Eastern influence into it, and just kind of expanding on that sort of style. Almost.
We're losing it.
But yeah, Orphanland has to be up here as well, though, for sure.
Absolutely, and it really goes back to that core of what we said the folk metal is metal with folk instrumentation. That's a prime example of bringing their own. Rich history of folk music that is different from anywhere else in the world. I think that Mabul is obviously the obvious choice, and there it is on the board. Other bands from that video montage that are certainly coming up, and the one that you love butchering, Agalok.
That's Agalok. I'm sorry, I keep butchering that name. I know. Watch, I'm gonna get so much hate for that. I get.
Super apologetic. We're Canadian. It's fine. Jamie Laszlo, The Mantle by Agalok is one hell of an epic journey. The blending of black and folk metal is done to perfection, and the fact that they used a deer skull as a percussion instrument only adds to the folklore of the album. I never knew that, and I'm going to use that now as a fact all the time. Chris O'Hara, at Agalok, nice and simple. That one guy, The Mantle and Pale Folklore are classic albums in my eyes. And of course,
we have a magnet for one of them.
Of course, we are hella prepared here at Banger, and we've got Agalok, The Mantle, ready to go up on the board. Bam, there it is. Other bands from the international scene, of course, German, Falkenbach. I'm sure here. Let's go to the board. Hannah Klein. Falkenbach is groundbreaking. From as early as '89, the band mixed black, folk, and Viking metal to create their own distinctive style. For me, their most important and best record is their '98 masterpiece, Magni Blandin Oak Megintiri. Old Norse for mixed with strength and pride glory. That's a lot easier for me to read. Alucard, come on, Falkenbach. We're one of the first that mixed extreme metal and folkloric music.
I can argue with that. I can, well, not argue with that. Sorry, I mean, I agree with that for sure. Sorry.
I thought we were gonna lock some horns, man.
No, Falconback for sure has to be here as well. Like, it's like, great blend of both styles of just folk music and heavy metal. Though Falconback has to be on here for sure. And if it wasn't for them, they wouldn't. You wouldn't see kind of like a progression of German folk music as well. Like, you get later editions like Equilibrium as well. So
right.
Yeah, for sure.
What would I do without Lisa being so organized and handing me the magnets at the correct times? I'm telling you, she's the glue behind this entire operation. Definitely we were prepared with that magnet because all week it's been being talked about online. That was the pick.
And here's a band that absolutely has to be in the coming up, that actually has to be on this list, or my bass player is going to kill me.
So we'll do your due diligence in making sure that Moon Sorrow is on the board. Let's go to the board. Alexander Van Kavai. There's not another band that can capture the essence of the epic folk metal spirit like Moon Sorrow. Maybe not the most technical band, but they are absolute masters when it comes to creating atmosphere. Runagoo. Moon Sorrow is the most epic folk metal band ever. Must be here. But which album is essential? Asking the big questions. That's what we like. Munta, okay, where is the fucking Moon Sorrow?
Well, guess what? We actually have a magnet for Moon Sorrow.
Of course we have a magnet for
We
Moon Sorrow.
do, but that's like what we thought, and the chat just keeps shouting the band name and not an album, which is not how it works on Lockhorn's Essential Albums. Gotta give us a record and tell us why.
And yeah, in case y'all forgot, we're doing essential albums. We're not building a branch of a tree for new genre with bands. We're doing albums. So this is your chance. Scream out. We just want the album name. Which Moon Sorrow record is going on the board right now? Do it. Let's go.
But this guy as well on the this comment right here, I completely agree with him as well. Like Veristikit has to be the essential in my opinion, anyways. But,
well, Morris Kerta says
yeah.
Moon Sorrow's Veristikit is the better album. But Voimasta Kuniasta, you guys are killing me, is the more folky and more influential. Andrew, Moon Sorrow, Sudin Uni is epic as fuck. Renee O'Reilly, Veristikit is the greatest pagan metal album of all time. I'm seeing Sudden Uni, Veristikit.
So it's definitely a divide between the pick between either those two for sure. But my vote goes to Veristikit. But if there's enough people that say Uni, then we'll swap it out for Uni.
Of course, that's the record I'm holding in my hand. Veristikit, it's going up on the board. And then we'll
For now,
we'll let people gather their thoughts. You know how this works. You'll get your chance. Just keep screaming and give Lisa tons of comments to go through and neatly organize for us to.
And I think this is my favorite comment because I'm giving people a hard time for not putting the album's names up.
Now they're just shouting.
And Johan Maxon says, "For fuck's sake, we can't spell the names," which is valid. Sorry.
You can't spell the names. We can't pronounce the names. It's a big affair of mispronunciations and grammatical errors here today at Lockhorns.
Guys, it's like almost coming up to the hour, so do we need to recap and take stock? How many records do we have? We need 10.
We need 10. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and we're still talking about adding more. This is the lightning round. This is my favorite part of the show. This is where the real magic happens. Let's get... Put your well-articulated arguments aside that I've been asking for all night and just start collecting those thoughts on albums. This is the lightning round. Let's do it. Full Metal Guy, Moon Sorrow, Veristikit. It's the apex of the folk metal, black metal genre, atmospheric, progressive, and epic. Blake B, Last Push for Turisas, battle metal, epic folk metal, fit for a Viking raid. That's what I'm looking for. Battle Beast. Battle Metal is the first album by Turisas. They blend death, black, atmospheric, and folk metal within this amazing album.
There is a couple Turisas for sure. The Vargadian Way has to make it onto the chart as well. I mean, that's such an epic record, and plus that used to be my ringtone as well. So like, how epic was it just going to school and having that as your as the way to keep you motivated in the morning? It's awesome.
I'm sure you were the coolest kid in high school.
I was the lamest kid in high school. I thought I was the coolest kid, but
we would have been friends.
True.
Let's continue this lightning round.
But there's also sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but they're actually when looking at the chart right here, there is one band that needs to be here that absolutely it has to be here or it's gonna drive me insane. And that's Fintroll.
Fintroll. We haven't even talked about Fintroll.
No one has really mentioned them. It's very strange.
That is very strange.
So-
we were fully prepared to hear Fintroll coming into this debate, and no one's really said it. Now, I see we've thrown it out in the live chat. We've thrown out. Does anyone want Fintroll? While you guys figure that out, I'm going to keep with the lightning round reading comments. Jeri, Versikit is pagan metal. The most essential of this particular conversation is Voimasta Jakunista. It's quite influential throughout the Finnish folk metal community. Mika weighs in. Fintroll's Yaktins Tid is folky, fun, and perfect for drinking beer.
That's very true, because that one has that
Yaktins Tid by Fintroll. Yaktins Tid by Fintroll.
There you go.
It's humpa as fuck.
Well, it has it has Trollhammer in on it, so and that's one of the pinnacle songs to really kind of get into the genre is that bombastic chorus that a lot of folk metal bands share, like da na 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 Trollhammer, right? It's it really gets everybody really pumped up. So, in my opinion, I'd love to see Fintroll on the board here for sure.
Burzum doesn't fit here. I'm seeing in the live chat. I don't have Burzum anywhere on the board. Learn how to read.
It's not Sfad that has the one on the. Oh, that has Trollhammer in on it. My bad. Sorry.
Which is the one that we made, but it looks like that's not what the chat wants. Oh,
no, they
someone
want
just called
Jochen
Fintroll Moonsorrow Light.
Moon
I take offense to
Sorrow
that.
Light.
And also, Bradley, give it up on Ailstorm. You're alone.
Bradley's sitting here trying to push for Ailstorm?
Yeah, and he's alone.
Dude, it's pirate metal. What are you doing? Leave your wenches and meat at home. We're talking folk metal here. Fintroll, troll metal.
See, I knew it. See, Jackins Tide does not have Trollhammer. I know. I made a mistake. This is the one that has Trollhammer on it.
So am I putting Fintroll up on the board? I need to take things off the board, Lisa.
You do. So while you think about that, I think there's some question marks about Bathory maybe coming off. And
Okay.
Proto, right?
Right, we're thinking proto Viking, right? So we're sticking Bathory over here unless anyone yells at me before I take it fully off. Was there any other grave offenses in the live chat that you've been seeing?
The thing that was kind of reoccurring throughout the chat that I saw was that these three are kind of the question marks of the chat.
You don't say the ones that we didn't have magnets for.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Winter Sun self-titled album or I fart in your face.
Ouch.
Winter Sun, first Winter Sun record is a straight folk metal record, isn't that fall way more under the mellow death?
I think it's more
epic.
Yeah, I think it's more like epic or mellow death kind of a thing. I think Winter Sun, they kind of in the same vein, they do step into a little bit of it, but I don't think it's enough to be considered mainly a folk metal band. But then again, my opinion. But I just think that it's more of I guess more of a Yari's associated with Ensiferum that kind of has that look.
Okay, apparently they want Bathory to stay, but maybe Amorphous should go.
Maybe Amorphous should go. Maybe Bathory is staying. Take down Bathory. They might be an influence, but then again, Deep Purple's a bloody influence, but that doesn't make them a folk metal band. Your argument is invalid. So I'm leaving Bathory and taking off Amorphous. Is that the call here?
We'll see what the chat thinks, but how many do we have for sure?
Okay.
Because we really are coming down to
6,
the
7,
end of the
8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 records sitting on the boards. Way too many.
Too many. Start making some executive decisions.
Okay, we're making calls. Bathory's coming off. It's a
Skyclad and Eluveitie, they stay.
They're untouchable.
Ensiferum stays.
Ensiferum is staying. Amorphous, we're saying a question mark. What's your feel on that? There was a lot of support at the start of the show.
I know. I think there's other records other than that one that could really get in, especially Teresas or Tyr.
Okay, you want to see some people freak out? There. Do we not have an eraser? I'm just using my hand here.
But there's
Or covering it with another record? All right, there we go. That works. My hand's all white now.
I think even See, here's the other thing too. If we're cutting down to top 10, it's like basically you're getting a bunch of fan bases like all against each other. That's why we have the Lockhorns, right? But
I'm just keeping up with the chat here. I'm gonna go ahead and do this, making that.
Remove Ulver.
Yeah, I just saw
yeah.
remove Ulver after you guys begged for Ulver. What the hell, man? No Amorphous, no Ulver. Okay, cool. Remove Amorphous. We got it. They're gone. Bathory stays. Amorphous stays. You guys making this real hard. Tyr. Should Tyr have been on the board? Did we
yes,
fuck that up?
Ragnarok.
He's right. I bet you we have a magnet for that. Of course we have a magnet.
We're not
for
supposed
that.
to be adding guys.
No,
I
but we
know.
screwed up. I'm telling you, we screwed up. This one should have been on the board. We'll take something else off. It's okay. What's your gut feeling right here, Dylan?
Okay.
What's my move here, man?
Okay, I think like Mago de Oz, I think that one should drop because I think.
I don't know. That was like
I don't know,
kind
'cause
of a
like-
fan choice. You know, like we made a bunch of magnets because we think we're all smart, and a lot of people liked that record in the chat.
I know that's true, but it's like in my opinion though, I think just Moon Sorrow has like had way more of an influence. But then again, I'm just one guy, so. So I mean, like.
On the chopping block right now, we've got Mago de Oz, Moon Sorrow,
No, they have to stay.
Moon Sorrow Stang. What's on the chopping block? Throw it at me, man.
God, I don't know. Okay, so we got these three are a must. They stay for sure.
Hundo P.
Korpiklaani stays. So, sorry, I'm just gonna move some of them back.
Cool. Yeah, sure. It's fine. Yeah, let's do that.
All right.
Process of elimination.
Fintroll, in my opinion, for sure.
Okay.
Tier. So we got and then Primordial. So there we go. So now we're down to 8. So now 2 more.
Agalok, where do we stand with that?
Where does the chat stand with Agalok? Do they stay or do they go?
I think that's pretty solid pick.
Okay, solid
So-
pick.
so they say?
Orphan Land, solid pick. In my opinion, but
They're solid-
my opinion is the one that matters. It's what you guys want.
See, it's so tough though. It's so tough though, especially when you have a genre that's like this. Well, it's one of the newer kind of genres into the scene where it's like this fan bases are starting to grow. And
This is insane.
No, if Bathory stays, it goes. It stays, it goes. You guys have to decide. That's what you're here for.
okay, I'm
This is
sorry.
albums, not bands.
I say no.
Yeah, I'm saying no too. I
I'm
don't
sorry.
think.
I'm sorry, guys. I say no because like.
Okay. How
But
about
Bathory
this?
is still a very influential band on a lot of the part of the whole metal tree, so they can fit basically in a ton of different genres.
Would you have this genre of music without that record?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
the question.
Yes.
Yes.
And
Then it can go.
let's remove it on the pretense that I'm going to talk to Sam Dunn and push for a essential Viking metal albums episode. And I know that Danny Williams is behind the camera right now wearing an Amon Amarth shirt, and he is hella stoked about that. So Bathory's off for now. That's his thumb. Bathory's off for now. That's cool. I'm glad that we made that call. So we're still sitting at too many albums, though, man.
I'm pushing Moon Sorrow, man.
Dude,
they
people are
have
going to
to.
be pissed if you take off Moon Sorrow.
Yeah, I say Moon Sorrow stays, man. Like that's my opinion. I think Moon Sorrow stays.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
You know what? I'm putting my foot down. Moon Sorrow stays.
Moon Sorrow stays.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of Moon Sorrow.
Moon Sorrow or we go to war.
to
Completely
war.
agree with that guy. Yeah. So.
Moon Sorrow staying. I'm seeing some Agalok can go. Viking is a lyrical theme. Yes. Okay, we'll talk
See
about
what
that
happens
later.
here on
This is
Lockhorns at
insane.
the end of the show. This is what
I
happens.
can't believe that, Lisa, you have to sort through this stuff the whole time while we get to.
Because here's the
be
thing.
nerds.
Here's the thing. There's so many good bands in this genre that definitely deserve recognition as well. Like you got bands like I was really hoping that in the chat there was a lot of push for Arcona. That was the
Yeah.
band I was really hoping that would make the chart. But if you're looking at like a bunch of these bands, I mean, like there's so many excellent bands that it's really hard to put down into a top 10. Like you got Arcona, Skyforger, Windeer, Heidi Volk. You got all these great bands, and then you got Chthonic. I mean, you got all these great bands from around the world that have put their foothold in the genre, and this is just more or less a list to just kind of open up the gates, so to speak, into another genre. So.
Well, here we got
Okay,
some,
so
we got some help for you.
I see. This
Yeah.
The lightning round just got a lot easier because this is about what you guys want and majority rules. Sandman 1201. Sorry to say Agalok. If you ask me, a wonderful album, not essential folk. Andrew Moon Sorrow stays. Agalok goes. Netjack Moon Sorrow stays. Agalok goes. Nicolas Farias Agalok out. Shall be written. It shall be done. We are out, but we have also confirmed the staying of Moon Sorrow, which I can now use to cover that. Where do we stand with this record right here?
Well,
Falkenbach.
Falkenbach kind of adds like the German like folk side of it, and plus Germany has a big influence on the scene as well. But also the other one as well is even the other one too is that so let's see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So then there's Falkenbach, Orphanland, and then there's also, we talked a little about Teresas. So what do we pick? Orphanland, Teresas, or Falkenbach? It's so tough, I know.
This is tough.
There weren't that many comments about this Fintroll album, really.
Really, eh?
Were there?
There weren't that many, and when we did put it up, obviously everyone started
Fintroll
saying
is
troll metal,
yeah.
troll
But
metal.
they're such an essential band, but they
yeah.
couldn't pick the record.
Lisa laying down the profound rules here. Just to remind everyone, this is about albums, not just a band. We know you love a band, but is the album essential? Would the genre be what it was without it? Dylan, our special guest, with the last call. Would this genre be the same without this album?
I'd say keep Fintroll, just because I say like just
Killing me, dude.
I know I'm killing you, but I just can't let it go, man. I know, I just can't let it go. Fintroll has to stay.
So then the other one on the chopping block is Falkenbach. Take Mago de Oz down. You guys were all yelling about putting Mago de Oz up, and now you want it down. No wonder everyone is so frustrated on the internet. All you guys do is change your
Guys,
mind.
you got 60 seconds to figure this out. That's
All right.
it. Or I'm gonna just
1,
like
2, 3,
ding
4,
you right
5,
off
6,
the show.
7, 8, 9. Orphanland stays. Falkenbach goes. Orphanland stays. There we go.
And we're
Booyah.
covering Mago de Oz, which now everyone seems to want off after you guys begged for it. That's 8, 9, 10. There is 10 records on the board right now.
Where's that horn?
Yeah, dude,
Yeah.
that is not fun. I take back everything I said about Lightning Round. That is not fun at all. Here's your 10 records. I know that everyone's probably screaming at their... I'm seeing people screaming at each other. I hope you stay in the chat room and scream at each other for hours because we read all of it and we love having you a part of it. But for now, we got to get the hell out of here. This has gone on way too long. Essential folk metal albums, whether you're happy or not, it's done. And maybe a follow-up episode because who knows. Dylan, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Andrew, Lisa, Craig, Daniel wearing an Amon Amarth shirt. Everyone else who joined us, thank you so much. You make the show what it is. Follow us on social media, tweet about it, post about it. Let's get the word out there. Let's make this the best heavy metal party happening every other Thursday live right here at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join us next week. We're doing the Best of Metal 2017. That's going to be awesome. Sam will be back because I know you guys are probably sick of me after this whole debacle. And make sure you subscribe, stay in touch, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Oh, what did I forget?
Nothing other than
Get the hell out of
time
here.
to go.
Later.